Hey everyone, welcome back. We are here again for another edition of the Weekly Member Spotlight. Today's a little different because we are pre-recording this instead of going Facebook Live because we have a very special guest, and in order to get him on the books today, we are pre-recording. I am honored to meet for the first time today Mr. John McDermott, who is General Counsel with the National Apartment Association. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us, John. Good morning.
Good morning, Melissa. Good to be with you.
I don't know if that's a sunrise or a sunset behind you, but I would love to be where you are right now.
That is, well, actually, I wish I were there. That's a screensaver that we've been doing so many of these calls that I put this up, and it's a Key West sunset, and I don't know if you can see over my shoulder there. That's a draft beer. So it's whenever I'm on one of these Zoom calls, it's I'd rather be.
Well, I don't know which looks better, the refreshing beverage or the sunset, but I would not hate to be in that location right now. I've never got to do the fun backdrop, but I need to find something that's as exciting to stare at as that, especially on a Friday, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Well, John, I really appreciate you being here. Our executive vice president, Mark Franks, nominated a few folks from the National Apartment Association to participate in this weekly member spotlight. And it has just been so exciting to get to meet folks like you who I wouldn't otherwise necessarily interact with. I think most of the folks in our association probably are unfamiliar with you. So I'd love to ask you if you would just take a moment, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your affiliation with the NAA.
Well, you know, Mark has notoriously poor judgment. My name to begin with, but he's been a friend for over 20 years. By way of introduction, I'm the General Counsel of the National Apartment Association. I have served in that capacity well into the last century.
Wow.
And kind of a unique thing in the relationship is I'm not an employee of the association. I've always maintained a separate law practice from this one trade association client. So I do have other clients, but there's a memorable story behind how I became NAA's lawyer, and that back in, it might have been around 1989 or 1990, that far back. And I was working in a law firm. That law firm was doing lobbying work for NAA, and they said somebody got a call, and they said, well, we've got an employment lawsuit. And they went down the hall, and I was pretty active trial lawyer at that time. And they say, John, do you know anything about, trying employment cases? I said, yeah, I've done a few of those. And he says, well, why don't you go talk to these people at NAA? Well, it turned out that in the membership department, the director of membership and her two subordinates had each one of them filed a lawsuit, complaint against NAA.
Oh, wow.
One was for religious discrimination, one was for racial discrimination, and one was for sexual discrimination. It's the only religious discrimination case I've ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
But all out of the same, department, so it's kind of a trifecta. We brought all those to a successful conclusion in a relatively short time, and then the director of the association said, well, I think we need a lawyer. And I said, I don't know much about apartments, except I used to live in one. Don't worry, you'll learn. And, we're 30 years into it now, and it's my longest and my most dear client.
Okay, well, two things. Number one, I'd love to ask you what area of law was your specialty or is your specialty?
Well, again, long time ago, I was in the United States Attorney's Office in DC. So I was a federal prosecutor. And so criminal law. When I left and went into private practice, I would defend criminal, usually white collar investigations, white collar. And then I moved to civil business litigation and personal injury stuff. I actually about 10 years ago, I was teaching a class with the DC bar and teaching other lawyers on how to try cases.
Mm-hmm.
Different. It's not what they teach you in law school. So it's just like how to behave in a courtroom, things like
Right. Etiquette.
that. Yes. Well, it's more like tactics.
Right. So I find it funny that you kind of fell into the industry, because those of us who are actively involved in the industry, whether you're at the site level in operations or at the executive level, and even several folks that I've spoken to at the national level, everyone sort of accidentally gets involved with the apartment industry, and then you can't get out of it because it's so, I don't know, fascinating, interesting. There's so much opportunity. It really does cover such a wide array of things. And one of the things that I have found most interesting about being in this business is that, you know, some days you have to really focus on the legality of what we do, and there are lawsuits and there are, you know, risk issues, and then other days it's about renting apartments, and other days it's about counseling people who live there, and other days it's about rebuilding something because there's been a fire, and it's truly just a little bit different every day. But as you were speaking, I was like, well, that's funny, he fell into the business just like the
It's very similar. It's just
yeah.
like here at the association, recently we've had some employment issues. Not that I do frequent employment issues. This year, with the cancellation of the apartmentalized events, whenever NAA has one of these conferences, we have contracts with more than 30 hotels, for example. They all had to be canceled. They all had.
Oh yeah.
And this is not, doesn't really fall on my shoulders. We have a very fine meeting staff here at the organization, but it's fun to work with them, you know, and on projects like that.
Well, interesting. Well, having been involved with this industry on some level for, I heard you say, I think 3 decades, what's a memorable story of something that was apartment industry related that comes to mind?
Well, let's see, when the office used to be in Alexandria, the FBI came by one day, and the guy who was running the accounting department was apparently robbing banks.
Oh no.
In the middle of the day during his lunch hour.
What? Like
yeah,
ski mask
cool.
And all?
It was great. Yeah.
Wow.
It was before COVID made wearing masks popular.
Right. Well, that is interesting. I've never been part of a bank robbery.
It was
the aftermath.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, what advice, John, would you offer up to folks, I don't know, in the industry or otherwise? It sounds like you've had a pretty interesting career. Any professional advice you would offer up?
Well, yeah, I'd say that it's worth the extra effort to spend time to get to meet your colleagues in the industry. And that's, you know, I've been fortunate to do it primarily on the national level, but people like Mark have been kind enough to invite me out to Cincinnati before, and it's just a great opportunity to meet other people and network, and it really helps your own career.
Right.
There was a time when what's an easy thing? I had to do a deposition in Tucson. Random reason. I just called up somebody in Arizona that I knew, and I said, "Can I have a conference room?" They go, "Oh, John, yeah, sure. Come over to the house. Come on, you know, we'll get a beer afterwards or something like that." So that's what I mean. It's been humbling and fortunate for me to have met so many people around the country and have such, you know, a good working relationship with them.
That's really great advice. I've been kind of in awe. I've been in the business for a really long time, my entire life, really. Started as a leasing consultant when I was 16 or 17 years old, and just kind of stayed in the business even through college and had opportunities. And I really had no idea, like most of us getting involved in this industry, what a huge industry it is, number one, and then how important it is at the national level. And over the last 10 years or so, how this industry has really become so sophisticated. Now there are, you know, degrees that you can get in property management. It's not just this conglomeration of people who have, you know, business or sales experience. There's actual, you know, degrees that you can get in not just hospitality, but property management specifically. And I've really been in awe watching people like Mark and Don. I know you know both of those folks very well, and they're involved at a national level, really teach us here locally how important it is to be involved at the national level.
Yeah, Mark and Don, I usually don't admit that I know Don to a lot.
Mr. President, and he's going to be on the national stage very soon. We're so excited and proud.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm looking forward to being in Cincinnati next year.
Yeah, well,
First
listen, if we had to have this pandemic, now's the best time. Hopefully we'll be through it and we can not have to have any virtual inaugurations or anything.
I hope so. I hope so.
Well, I'd love to shift gears,
Together.
John, and get to know a little bit more about you on a personal level. Can I ask you to share with us a little bit about your family?
Sure. I've been married for over 45 years.
Wow, what's the secret to that?
I think patience is the
Patience.
Do I think that's much? My wife's patience. Does she have
with more?
Me.
Okay.
We have, and my wife's name is Pat. She's retired. And we have two sons in their 30s. One's married and one's about to be. And
Congrats.
Dan and Brian. And I'm proud to report that they're both better men than I am.
Aw.
And that's been a lifelong project for their mother and I.
Oh, well, that's exciting. Do they live near you, or where are they these days?
Yeah, actually, Dan lives just about 2 miles away, and
okay.
And just moved about 45 minutes away. He lives in Warrenton, Virginia.
Okay.
We live in Arlington, Virginia, about 4 blocks away from NAA's offices. So I'm able to walk to work.
Nice.
Yeah,
so please forgive my ignorance, but I have to ask, is that a Georgetown shirt?
Oh, this one, yeah.
Okay.
It's a G with the word crew underneath it. And when people
okay.
at it, I usually say it's Grambling for the crew. I wasn't talented enough to, make it on the band, so I had to be on the rowing team.
Hey, that's cool.
In seriousness, yeah, it is a Georgetown shirt.
Okay, I debated if I was going to ask you, as you started naming the cities around you, I knew you were from the DC area, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to embarrass myself. I'm not asking that question. Well, that's exciting. What do you like to do in your spare time, with or without your family?
Well, I kept with I kept up with rowing after graduation from college.
Uh-huh.
And I was competing on the master's level for a number of years.
Wow.
Won a few races. That was good. That was fun. Developed a lot of friendship through doing that as well. But this year, with the COVID crackdown, they closed the boathouses, they closed the gyms. So I bought a bicycle.
Oh, nice.
Been logging a lot of miles on that bicycle.
Is it a Peloton, or what kind of bicycle are you? Are you
2 wheels.
riding
pedal.
outside? Is it indoor?
No, we actually go out and log the miles.
Oh, nice. Well, with the weather there, I mean, I know it's been nice springtime to have things to do outside, but with the weather there, how long will you get to bike, do you think?
Well, I'm planning on next week. I'm planning on bicycling from Pittsburgh to DC.
Really?
Take about 5 days or so to do it.
Wow, that's interesting. And so what will you do to rest and sleep?
Each night we're going to stop. Pat is my support team.
Yeah.
And so we'll spend the night at a B&B or a motel or something like that at different towns. The rides each day are, I think the shortest is 40 miles and the longest 65.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's the plan.
Well, that's really interesting. So when you cycle, do you listen to music? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you just listen to your own thoughts?
Mostly my own thoughts. I don't, I find some of that other stuff to be a distraction. And, being on a bike is a great way to explore places. It's how I got, to, figure out my way around Key West for the last decade or so.
Yeah. Do you have a vacation home there, or do you go and stay? Yeah.
We do. Yeah. And it's available. We rent it out a fair amount of the time, but we're blocking some time. We're looking forward to going down in November and in January.
Are you a Jimmy Buffett fan by any?
Little bit, sure, sure. One thing I also,
Cincinnati is one of his favorite places.
oh yeah.
Second,
One
I
thing I
think,
used
only
to
to
do
the Cubs, right?
in school was I played and taught guitar
Okay.
and performed, and the Jimmy Buffett songs were always part of the repertoire because
Oh yeah.
they're pretty easy to play, and everyone knows the lyrics, and next thing you know, you've got a bunch of drunks singing along with you. So that's a good time.
I don't know why Cincinnati is the, second Jimmy Buffett central of the United States, but it absolutely is. So
I didn't know that. I didn't know
it
that.
is,
That's great.
yes. At my very first apartment community that I used to work at, he had a band, a steel drummer, who lived at our community, that every time he came to Cincinnati, he would play with Jimmy and he recorded with him. And I was like, no way. And he brought in this just huge album showing me years of all of his shows and connections with him. And I'm like, that is really interesting. And it is a huge drunk fest. You're absolutely right.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I never figured out how the guys learned how to play that
The steel drum, I know.
steel drum.
You don't have one in your apartment, do you? That could get a little...
Oh, no.
Well, if you have a second home in Key West, do you vacation there? Or do you have any other vacation spots that are a favorite?
Well, the vacations now, it's like it's by hook or by crook. How do we get a chance to spend time with the kids,
Right.
their families? And but they've figured it out. What they do is they leave town and they leave their dogs with us.
Oh, so you're pet sitters.
Exactly, we're pet sitting.
Is that a hobby, or do you charge for that? Or
We don't know. We'd never charge for it. And we like both their dogs. So
what kind of dogs do they have?
Danny and his wife Sarah, they've got a mixed lab,
Mm-hmm.
George, and he's just really sweet, affectionate, things like that.
Yeah.
Brian and Emily, they've got a 1-year-old, 92-pound Rottweiler that
Oh, wow.
she thinks she's still a puppy.
That's a big girl.
She's very, very sweet, but really strong too.
Oh, wow, I bet. So do you have pets at home, or you just have the grand pets?
We used to when the boys were growing up, we had labs, but now we're just sitting now.
Yeah. Well, that's still nice. It's kind of like I used to say that about my niece and nephews. It's great to have them, and then I get to have all the fun part of it and then send them home.
Right.
So sounds like you're very active. Do you follow sports at all?
Oh yeah, sure.
Who's your favorite?
Oh, this won't be popular there.
Uh-oh. Don't you
I'm
dare say the Steelers.
Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, the Ravens. I can get
Season
behind the
ticket holder.
Ravens a little better.
Yeah, that's why I'm starting the bike trip in Pittsburgh, because I can get away from the Steelers fans right away.
There you go. That I could definitely get behind that. We had the GCNKA of all people had this gentleman speak at our general membership meeting, and it was a virtual meeting, and I know him and he's fantastic, so it was all in good fun, but he literally has a Steelers helmet on his bookshelf behind him. I'm like, are you taunting us? You're coming to speak for the GCNKAA. That is not okay.
You guys are going to be strong this year, though.
Here's to hoping. I hope our Reds are going to clinch today. We've got an opportunity to do so, but it's tough being a Cincinnati sports fan. I don't know.
I like that. I love that baseball
and football
park.
both, but yeah,
I love that baseball park in Cincinnati. It's great.
yeah, it's beautiful. Well, what about music? Are you a music fan? Speaking of your little melody there, and if so, what's one of the best concerts you've been to, John?
Oh, I'd say usually I like smaller venues, but the best is it's got to be. I saw Bruce Springsteen a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
Such an energetic performer.
Yes.
Just exhausted at the end of each performance.
Yeah. He's pretty epic. I was trying to remember this to tell my niece. It's been a little while ago, but I remember watching his video to Dancing in the Dark when it came out, like, 30 years ago or something. And I remember watching that as a kid thinking, oh my goodness, like that's got to be the best thing ever. And then the girl that was in the video became, very famous, Courtney Cox, and acting and stuff. And I couldn't remember the name of that song for the life of me. But that's good. He's from Pennsylvania, right? Isn't he from Philadelphia or something?
No, I think he's from Jersey.
Is he from Jersey? Okay. I knew somewhere up there. Well, I know when you and I were getting acclimated to doing this kind of interview, you shared something really interesting with me. You had a COVID-19 project, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about that with us.
Oh, sure. It's one thing I was struck by when the kids would have their friends over to the house. I'd say, "So what do your parents do? What's just trying to get to know them better." And I was always struck by the fact that so few knew what their parents did for a living, in the broadest possible terms. It's just like they would be able to say, my parent manages apartments, but they don't get a sense for the complexity and the richness of experience, Melissa, that you were talking about earlier, like all the different issues that come up. So I thought what I'd do is just write down some of the cases that I'd had, starting back when I was in law school, through the early years and to some of the later ones. And this was not, it was autobiographical in the sense that, yeah, this is nonfiction.
Right.
Each story had a little hook to it, hopefully a little bit of humor. The idea of doing it was that the boys would actually know what their father did for a living. And in a kind of an ironic way, this year in 2020 with the COVID lockdown and things like that, that it provided me an opportunity to reflect and finally collect some of these stories and put them down right.
I find that so fascinating. I am passionate about journaling and writing, and I have a goal to do something like that. Not necessarily just for my son, for me as well. My aunt, who I was extremely close to, passed away very unexpectedly last December, and she had always journaled, and I knew that about her. But getting all of her journals and seeing all of this, I've also read a few like celebrity autobiographies and things like that, and I find it so fascinating. And I hope I didn't take the opportunity during COVID. I wish I would have. But I so hope to be able to sit down and have the time to do that and organize it in a way that, someone who is important to me could pick it up and kind of see from start to finish who I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and, how I got from point A to point B in life. And I just really admire that. Thank you for sharing it with me. I
really sure.
appreciate that. And I'm a reader too, so I was excited about that.
Great.
Well, thank you. That's
more insight about me in advance of the interview. That's all.
Yeah. Did you share it with your family yet?
Anybody who wants to read it. I don't care.
Well, hey, if anybody wants to read it and he's willing to share it, I've got a copy. I'm sure he'd pass it on. But yeah, I just find that very interesting. By way of your profession, I'm sure writing is something that you've had to, become good at. Was it difficult to sit down and start writing about yourself? How did you start?
The hard thing is when you write in a different style. So trial lawyers think of them as salespeople. Trying to close a sale, you're trying to direct a certain amount of human behavior, whether it's the jury or whatever. So it's advocacy, and everything that you put into it is designed to push the reader to a certain conclusion. Just sitting back and telling stories and trying to make them interesting as if you're a campfire or something like that. That's a whole different. Right. So it was a bit of an adjustment. A lot of those chapters were rewritten a lot. Sometimes at my wife's insistence, she didn't like the fact. I don't know if you've gotten this far, but we represented a lot of plaintiffs in the breast implant class action cases, and she said, "Oh no, you can't write that. You got." I said, "Okay, fine, we can do that." So
she was your editor?
Well, I was fortunate to have a lot of editors, but
yeah,
I rely on her a lot of times for just good judgment when I lack it myself.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I look forward to finishing it, but thank you for sharing. And again, I would love to share that with anyone else who's interested. I find it fascinating, and that's one thing I really did invest time in this year was, and I listen mostly on Audible versus like physically reading things most of the time, but I really just tried hard to focus on that because when you get busy, and I have a 9-year-old, sometimes that's the easiest thing to give, but it's so I'm always like, why don't I do this more? Why don't I read and listen and real stories, not necessarily fiction. I love, some series and things like that too, but just hearing about people. That's my favorite thing about this business is the people we get to interact with, residents, especially seeing how people live. And it's just very fascinating. So thank you again for sharing your COVID project with us.
You're welcome.
Just a few more questions for you, John, and I'll let you get to that fridge behind you. Well, one of the things I love to ask people is, what's your favorite food or restaurant?
Well, in Cincinnati, I've been to there's a German place downtown I've been to a couple times. I've enjoyed every meal there.
Yeah.
And then there's a place out on Route 50. It's called the Turf Club. It has great burgers.
Yeah.
I like those. I was fortunate to have a good friend, a college classmate named Greg Kenny, who who worked at General Cable for a number of years.
Okay.
Across the river from you. And he took me to the Turf Club, and he was my tour guide in Cincinnati a few times.
Nice.
Long time friend.
Do you remember the name of the German restaurant? I'm trying to think of what it might be in Cincinnati.
I do not. I know I think there's a hotel called the Cincinnati Inn or something.
Yeah.
Walking distance to that.
Okay. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, most of us Cincinnatians have quite a bit of German heritage, so I definitely want to figure out which restaurant that is, make sure I have enjoyed it myself.
Right.
Well, I think unless there's anything more you'd like to share, I'm down to my last 2 questions. The first of which is share a random fun fact about yourself that we wouldn't otherwise know, having not this opportunity to sit down with you.
Well, I've done this general counsel job for a long time, and Don Bruner asked me a couple of years ago, would I still be doing it during his year? So I've got to stop sometime. As we were talking about before, I look forward to being at the party.
Yes.
He gets installed, and few people have worked as hard as Don has over the years for the industry. And so I would definitely want to be a part of that celebration. But I'm going to be retiring into a different profession, which is I'm going to be a boat captain.
Oh, nice.
I licensed from the Coast Guard last year or so, and I what's called a 100-ton license earlier this year. And so my plan is to take other people's boats. I need to move them somewhere, and to call Captain John, and he'll be happy to take it from Maine to the Keys.
Very nice. That sounds like a fantastic retirement plan.
Yeah. Well, I hope it works out.
I've heard. Do you own a boat?
That's going to change this weekend.
Oh, really?
The second happiest day, the day you sell it.
Right. Well, I've heard it's really nice to have a close friend with a boat.
Perfect. Yep.
Well, that's exciting. Well, good. Well, and I think I can say on behalf of everyone here locally, we're really glad you're going to stick around to see our Mr. Bruner be installed. We're so proud and so excited, and look forward to that. And hopefully I'll be around and get to meet you in person. I was very much looking forward to the Apartmentalize conference and prepared to go to Dallas this fall, next month, or I guess it was going to be in November, but certainly understand and respect the need to have that virtual event. But next year, Cincinnati, and hopefully the Apartmentalize conference back on.
Hope so.
Yeah. All right. Well, our very last question, John, and this is a great one too, but I'd love to ask you, how do you think folks who have worked with you throughout your career would describe you as a leader?
Oh, that is a good question. I think they describe me as fair. Sorry.
No worries.
Fair, because when I work with people, I tend to do it in a fairly organized way and announce expectations beforehand. I've recently been asked to take over the NAA lease program, click and lease program.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be working with a number of people on the NAA staff, and so the style is, these are the expectations, get buy-in at the beginning, set some deadlines for the projects, and then hit them. And
nice.
if you don't hit them, then we're going to have problems. But if you do what you promised you would do, then we'll get along fine. And that's
right.
That's why the answer is, I think, fairness, because I think that's a fair way to proceed.
Interesting. Well, I like that very much, and I'm going to make sure to have a conversation with the folks, John and Mark, and we'll see if they can attest to your fairness. It sounds to me like you're extremely knowledgeable in what you do, and have really dedicated your life to being, that person to count on. I'm feeling fortunate that this industry got a hold of you when we did, and that you're here for us. I remember when the Click and Lease program came out, I was a property manager on site, and our company adopted the Blue Moon, and now it's completely changed our industry, and it's been such a important part of what we do. It's so wonderful knowing we're protected as, owners and operators of our buildings, and having the National Apartment Association oversee the lease program just makes so much sense.
I think it's been a great program for everybody. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, John, thank you again. It has truly been a pleasure. I'm going to finish your memoir, and I'm going to follow up with you and give you any of my thoughts and feedback, but it's certainly inspired me to start on my own a little more formally. And it's been a pleasure. Thanks for taking time this morning. Hope you find your boat and have a great weekend.
Thanks,
and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Look forward to meeting you in person sometime.
Absolutely. If not sooner, at Mr. Bruner's installation. I will be there.
Let's hope sooner. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you again. Enjoy the weekend.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.